Good morning. My name is David Iannucci. I'm the President and CEO of the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. Welcome to Prince George's County Business Webinar, Where Do We Go From Here, Part 2. We're delighted to partner again with the Prince George's County Chamber of Commerce to bring you up-to-date information about resources and challenges and issues affecting the Prince George's County business community. My thanks to David Harrington and to Tom Farrisee from the Chamber of Commerce. We've had a great working relationship going back many years. Thank you for your collaboration and support. I want to thank in advance our panelists, United States Senator Ben Cardin from Maryland, Dr. Charlene Dukes, and David Velasquez from County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, Prince George's County Forward Task Force. And I also want to thank our community business owners who will be sharing their stories in just a few minutes. The Economic Development Corporation's role in the Alsobrooks administration is to be the kind of key connector between the county government and the business community. Pre-COVID, we added 25,000 jobs over 6 years, leading the state of Maryland in job growth over that period of time. Our unemployment rate was down to about 4%, and we had great progress in, for instance, our transit-oriented development locations, New Carrollton, Largo, Suitland, and Branch Avenue. COVID, of course, has been a horrible, horrible health crisis, but it has also been a terrible economic crisis. The recent data from the Maryland Department of Labor shows that Prince George's County lost about 33,000 jobs in the third quarter of 2020, essentially more jobs in one quarter than we'd gained in 6 years. Our unemployment rate had topped over 10%. The good news is now down to close to 7%. But some of our hardest hit sectors are restaurants and hotels, and frankly, particularly people of color, workers of color are carrying the greatest burden of this unemployment. The Economic Development Corporation and our partners had to do a very quick pivot. We have allocated over $43 million in grants to more than 1,500 businesses, restaurants, hotels, and childcare centers in Prince George's County. The source of those funds were federal, state, local, and even some private money. And we know that we saved companies, we saved jobs, and frankly, we might have even saved lives. So we're getting back to economic development. We're seeing growth in our last mile centers. We have great opportunity for data centers in Prince George's County. Giant Food has expanded their headquarters. Companies like Cyber and Capital Electric are expanding. And I don't know if you read the other day about IonQ, a College Park company that's in quantum computing and is perhaps the wealthiest, best capitalized quantum computing company in the world. The opening of businesses and vaccinations are offering businesses hope. We do believe our economy is turning around for the better. I expect the unemployment rate to keep on dropping, although maybe a little slower than we'd like. We think it's clearly coming back. And the good news is that the federal government really stepped up in an amazing way. And one of the leaders of that effort in the federal government is here with us today. United States Senator Ben Cardin, the senior senator from Maryland, has served in Congress since 1987. Before that, he was in the Maryland House of Delegates, where he was Speaker of the House, where Senator Cardin, you might recall me as a very young lawyer in the early 1980s, where I first met you. It's been a long time ago when I worked in bill drafting and you were Speaker of the House. I know you are now a member of the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, and you've made it a real priority to focus on small business, and we want to thank you for that. We thank you for your work on the Paycheck Protection Act. I know you've also worked on other changes in the Small Business Administration and how they administer some of their largest programs to make them more business friendly. So today, Senator Cardin will talk about the recently passed Recovery Act, which will insert $1.9 trillion in the American economy. Senator Cardin, we're really grateful for you to give us your time today. Thank you so much.
First, to Dave Iannucci, thank you so much for that great introduction, but more importantly for your career of public service, starting in the Maryland General Assembly. I do remember those days. They were a different type of political climate than we have today, but you couldn't even tell who the Democrats and Republicans were. We worked very well together. Thank you so much for your leadership in Prince George's County. To David Harrington, thank you for the chamber and what you do, and the close relationship we have with our office. I want to just stress that this work has been done by Team Maryland. I work very, very closely with Senator Van Hollen, with Steny Hoyer and Anthony Brown, your federal team. I work with the governor, work with the county exec, work with municipal leaders. This truly is a Team Maryland effort, but I couldn't be more proud of the passage of the American Rescue Plan. It's one of the most consequential bills I've ever worked on in my entire career, and I've been in this for a long time. It's a game changer in that the resources are going to those who really need it. When you look at who benefits the most, if you take the lowest quintile of income in this country, the lowest 20%, they will get an effective increase in their income after tax of 20%. That's a dramatic change from what we've done in the past. If you compare that to the 2017 tax bill that passed, you couldn't even measure. It was less than 1% help that they got in that bill. So this bill is targeted to those who really need it. It puts a lot of money into our economy. If you take a look at the extra $1,400 per person, you'll find that that's going to pour in over $6 billion into the Maryland economy. Just that one change, that's big with $1 billion. So it's a game changer. When you take a look at children in poverty, we're going to cut the child poverty rate by 50%. That's 57,000 children in Maryland will be lifted out of poverty. So when we start with the premise that those that depended upon safety net services, we're going to be lifting them out and helping us. This is why economists believe that this bill will actually end up being the best investment we can make in regards to dealing with our deficit and dealing with putting our finances in order by lifting up our economy for those who have been left behind for way too long. And then it's an all-out attack on the COVID-19. We recognize that if businesses are going to get back to any degree of normalcy, we've got to get COVID-19 behind us. Now, how do you do that so Americans can go out and enjoy their life, can visit establishments, can eat out freely, can travel and tourism? How do you get that going? Well, two things. First, we need to get COVID-19 itself under control, and that means getting shots in the arm. And under President Biden's leadership, we had the volume of vaccines coming in at a healthy number. We now have a distribution system that's been set up from the point of view of who can administer the vaccines. In this rescue plan, we've provided significant resources to invest in local communities, outreach so that their community has confidence that this vaccine is not something that historically has been used in a discriminatory way against our community. It's something that we need for our community so we can get an equitable distribution of the vaccine. So from the point of view of getting the virus under control, you look at the money that we're putting into the vaccine distributions, outreach, and then also dealing with testing and dealing with vaccine development for the future, because we know this is not the last virus that we're going to be experiencing in our lifetime. There are going to be other variations that are going to come along, and we want to make sure that we can keep people safe in regards to that. The other part of this is to get schools open safely, because for Americans, again, for our children, they need to be in school. And for our families, we need to have the security of knowing our children are in school so that we can participate in life the way we did before COVID-19. So there's substantial money. The local school systems in Maryland alone will get $2 billion. That's again, the big $2 billion will be coming to our local school systems in Maryland to deal with the issues of dealing with the needs of COVID-19, but to make up for the losses, for after-school programs, for summer programs, to deal with broadband accessibility, infrastructure changes. There's substantial amount of resources here so that we can get broadband into every home in America. We knew we had a problem before COVID-19, but after COVID-19, it became very clear that we have to have affordable access to high-speed internet in every family in America. So this bill allows the school monies to be used to build up infrastructure and technology capacity. It provides money for local governments so they can use their funds to do the last mile connection in conjunction with the media companies, the internet platforms. And it also gives the FCC over $7 billion to provide affordable access to every family in America. So we're committed to a broadband connectivity. In the December bill we passed, state and local governments were left out. They were not included in the program. We included state and local government in this program because they provide essential services and they've seen a significant revenue loss as a result of COVID-19. So yes, we went back to the CARES Act formula, and our counties are going to receive a larger allocation of funds for Prince George's County. It's a direct allocation of $176 million. That's in addition to the school aid. That's in addition to other funds that they're getting under this program for health and housing. They're going to get $176 billion that they can use for just about any purpose other than tax cuts or backfill tax cuts or pension obligations. They can use this for any type of a need that they've had as a result of the loss of revenues or COVID-related expenses. That's not the end. In addition, we provide an equal sum of money nationally to go directly to our municipalities. Now, this is not without controversy. And I've been having some interesting discussions with some of the Prince George's County elected officials. The county officials have asked us to make sure that their money comes directly to the county rather than through the state. And we did that. We did that. This $176 million will come directly to Prince George's County. But our municipalities have also been asking us to send money directly to them and not through the counties. Now, the counties have a different attitude towards the monies going to municipalities, but I think they also recognize, particularly in Prince George's County, where you have the most municipalities in our state, that life in your municipalities are a challenge. So we provided direct relief to municipalities. And here's the challenge. In doing this, and Prince George's County will receive another $160 million that'll go directly to the municipalities in Prince George's County. But the formula that was used, that there was two pools of dollars available for the municipal funds. One was for those that are eligible for CDBG funding. They received one pool of dollars. And then there was another pool of dollars available for the non-CDBG eligible municipalities. And the challenge here is that because large municipalities are included in the CDBG, I mean big cities, the smaller municipalities in Prince George's County that are eligible for CDBG would have done better under the second pool rather than the first pool. And that's created some inequities. This bill is not perfect, and we're going to have to take a look at that moving forward. So you're going to see some of our municipalities that have smaller populations got more money because they're not CDBG eligible in Prince George's County than those others. And you'll hear from some of your elected officials on that issue. And as a result of that, since Baltimore City is considered a municipality, it's not in a county, they were able to get municipal funds and county funds. And there's been some challenges because of the disparity between Baltimore City and the rest of the jurisdictions in Maryland. Just really wanted to point that out so you recognize that even though this bill has received broad support from our local officials, there are issues that we're going to have to look at moving forward. The bill does deal, and David mentioned this, we could go through the health equity issues. There's a lot of funds in here for health equities, including community health centers, including dealing with the extension of COBRA protection for those who are unemployed, including dealing with addiction, additional funds in that regard. There's funds in here for housing. For the first time, we do deal with homeowners and assisting them in their mortgage payments, as well as renters. There's money in here for LIHEAP. There's money in here for childcare to the providers so that they can remain in business, as well as to make it affordable for families to be able to afford childcare. And money in here for transit, substantial funds for the Washington Metro system, over $1 billion to help deal with keeping that moving. I want to just conclude on the small business provisions that David mentioned. I was ranking when the original CARES Act was passed, and we developed new tools for small businesses, including the Paycheck Protection Program and the Idle Advance Program, and the Loan Forgiveness Program and Idle Loan Program. All those were expanded. We have now provided over $1 trillion of aid for small businesses since the beginning of COVID-19. I now chair the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, and my focus is to make sure these tools work. And what we've done in this round is to target the money to those who really need it. And I want to just spend a minute on that. So if you're in a low-income community, we want to make sure you get your full $10,000 advance under the EIDL program. Some applied for that and only got a couple $1,000s. We're going to make sure that's 10. And if you are the smallest of the small businesses and you've had dramatic loss in revenue, we want you to be able to get a $15,000 advance. So we fine-tuned that program, and small businesses in Prince George's County, we believe, can take advantage of that program. But we've gone beyond that. We've now set up a separate program for restaurants. We already did two things to help restaurants. We did their affiliation rule in a more generous way so they could qualify for the PPP program. On the second round of PPP, we gave them a more generous amount for forgivable loans under the formula. We now are setting up a separate $28 billion program for restaurants to be able to deal with their revenue losses from pre-COVID to COVID. And that program will be up and running, we think, in the next few weeks. That we also have expanded eligibility to deal with nonprofits that weren't eligible before. So there's some changes in this program, and David mentioned the local programs. We also put more money in Treasury for partnerships with local governments to fine-tune help in your own community to deal with small businesses. I want to make one critical announcement here, and that is the window for the PPP program ends on March 31st, the end of this month. You have to have your applications not only in, but approved by the end of March. Now, we anticipate we're going to extend that date, but as you know, Congress is only in for one more week before we adjourn until the second week in April. So I have filed legislation. I have a commitment from the Majority Leader Schumer that we can bring that legislation up this coming week that will extend the window for 2 additional months. But you can't rely on that being done. So I just urge any business that is eligible for the PPP forgivable loans or the second round of PPP forgivable loans, either under the original allocations or under the new eligibility rules, to get their applications in ASAP. And I mean ASAP. Get it in first thing Monday morning or get it in today. Let's get those loans in. And hopefully we will extend it. And I am optimistic that we will extend those programs. We have information on our website. We've handed out information that gives you the total breakdown of state and local governments, how much every municipality will get directly, how much every county will get directly. That information is available from us. We also have a guide that my office put out for small businesses. It looks something like this. If you can see it, we put out that explains all the different provisions. We can make sure you all get copies of that. So we know there's going to be questions. This is a comprehensive bill. We look forward to working with the chambers so we get information out so people understand how they can take advantage of the tools that were made available under the American Rescue Plan. With that, let me turn it back to David and be glad to take some questions if you have some questions, and make sure we stay on schedule today.
Senator, that was just terrific. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for that information. I think it's greatly appreciated. We do have a few questions. There's a question about broadband access and the complaint that the cable companies are price gouging. What can be done about that? Are there more options among Comcast and Verizon to help drive down the cost to the consumer? And you mentioned there is money in the federal bill about broadband access.
Well, David, recognize that these companies are private companies, and they're going to do what they think is in the best interest for their shareholders. That's how our society works. We try to put guardrails to make sure that they're in every community. But as you know, we've had significant challenges in getting last mile connections, not just in neighborhoods that have affordability issues, but in rural areas or in areas that are hard to reach. We've had a challenge with the internet companies to do that last mile connection. So therefore, we have provided government subsidies to help make it work. And those monies have been provided directly under some of our economic development programs. It's been, I can tell you in the western part of our state, we have used the Appalachia Regional Commission dollars in order to reach our rural counties in the western part of Maryland. We've used EDA funds in some of our underserved communities. So we've done different programs to help make it more attractive for the business to make those last mile connections. But what we've done now, we've charged the Federal Communication Commission with affordability issues and to go after specifically the questions you're talking about. And they are going to take action against companies if they gouge. They will. And we've instructed them to do that. But we gave them over $7 billion for the affordability issue. So they can now set up E-rates that are affordable so that they don't have to worry about getting their full return from a limited number of users to make that investment. So we're trying to make the economics work for every community in the country. Some of this will be cross subsidies so that the larger communities may be paying a few dollars more for the service so that the smaller communities can get the same service levels. But part of it is through the general support system itself, through taxpayer dollars. And some of it, quite frankly, is to rein in their abusive practices because they have limited competition in certain areas. So for all those reasons, we're taking on this issue. The bottom line, we were fortunate in Maryland to use ARA funds, the recovery from the last recession, to build the superhighway. We have the internet, we have the broadband superhighway in Maryland. Every community can get access to high-speed internet. It's now just about affordability and last mile connection. And we're working to make sure that's a reality in every home.
Very responsive. Thank you. A couple more questions, if you don't mind. And well, I know your time is important.
Sure.
A small business owner says, I'm afraid to apply for a second PPP loan because my bank, I'll leave the name out, won't provide a pathway to get the first PPP loan forgiven. Is there anything the federal government can do to insist that banks start forgiving loans for small businesses?
We've had some problems with some banks. I must tell you, I think generally the banks in Maryland have been responsive. I want to make that clear. I think they've done, we had a real problem, I think, when we first opened up the windows, and that was last March and April. I think it took a little bit of time. We also significantly provided resources to mission lenders, the CDFIs, the minority depository institutions, so to get underbanked communities. The problem is that we found there was a problem if you didn't have a priority arrangement with your bank, and if you were a small business, so it wasn't as profitable for the bank to do that loan compared to larger loans from a larger small business. So we walled off money for small businesses. We walled off money for the CDFIs and mission lenders so that we could reach the underserved and underbanked community. And we put language to make that clear. We've done the same thing on the second round of PPP. We also simplified the loan forgiveness. It should be a one-page form, and they should act on that within a matter of days. It shouldn't take them long to get the forgiveness done, unless, again, you're one of the larger loans. If you're under $150,000, we expect that loan should be forgiven easily. If you're still running into trouble with your banks, let us know about it. Let my office know about it. Our small business staff will check out and see what the circumstances are. But if your bank won't process a second round of PPP, find a different bank. Don't hesitate. And you don't have to go to one bank. You can go to different banks. There's no risk to the bank. It's 100% guaranteed by the government. They get a guaranteed cost reimbursement from the federal government to process the loans. There is no excuse whatsoever for a bank not processing your loan. We've made it as easy as possible for them to get this done. It's only the only justification they're using for not processing this, assuming you got all the paperwork done properly, is that there's someone else in line that they think they can make more money off of. So don't let them get away with that.
David, can I just chime in for like 5 seconds?
Yeah, sure. I was going to read your question here, but go ahead.
Yeah, Senator, thank you very much for the funding for the CDFIs and small lending banks, because and I just want to let everybody know I put in the chat box where I know that David in the chamber has some CDFIs who, in fact, their portals are open and they are very willing to look at your applications and get you PPP funding. So I put a couple of those in there, and through the chamber and through EDC, we'll send out a couple of banks that you can go to so that then you can get your PPP loan process. Thanks, David. I just wanted to throw that in there and look at the chat box.
And let me point out, in the December legislation, we put $12 billion of resources into CDFIs. The Treasury has just announced the grants where these funds are going out, are available to strengthen the capitalization of CDFIs. So we really have made a commitment to mission lenders, recognizing that commercial banks are critically important in our community. And I don't want to take anything away from our commercial banks, particularly the community banks. But we also recognize that mission lenders during times of hardship can be a lifesaver.
And I know, do you have time for one or two more questions?
Sure. Absolutely.
And one of the questions about the restaurant relief, and I know that we've had a lot of dire predictions about 1/3 of restaurants going out of business. The money that's in this federal program for restaurants might make that prediction go away. I really want to acknowledge that. So one of the questions we have is, besides PPP or extra funding for restaurants, does the American Rescue Plan provide any additional relief for other small business industries?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have two new programs. One is the Shuttered Venue program that has not yet opened up. We expect it to open up. This was approved in the December legislation. We expect this window directions to be given out within the next couple weeks. And that applies to entertainment venues. It applies to movie houses. It applies to museums that have been ordered by government basically not to operate. They will be able to get a grant. This is a grant, not a loan, equal to their gross receipts loss as a result of COVID-19. Now, here's the good news. We put in the American Rescue Plan that the smaller entities that come under the Shuttered Venue can apply for a PPP loan, a second round of PPP, and get those funds now. And then when the Shuttered Venue window opens, and if you qualify for the Shuttered Venue funds that give you a much larger sum of money than you can get under the PPP loan, you can get the Shuttered Venue loan. You just subtract the amount of the PPP forgivable loan. You can get the Shuttered Venue grant. You just subtract the amount of money that you got from the PPP forgivable loan. So yes, that is open. And then the restaurant program works in a similar way. You can apply for PPP. You just can't double dip. So the PPP window is open. The Shuttered Venue and the restaurant special grant program windows are not yet open. We expect them to be open very shortly. There are special programs. Now, in addition to that, as David pointed out, this is just one avenue. State and local governments, private sector has stepped up, and some of this is with federal partnership. For example, we set up a community navigator program. So it's possible, for example, the Prince George's Chamber could get into a contract with the federal government to get special help to small companies so that they can access these tools, and you can get a grant. Right now, you're doing that on your own dime, but now you can get federal funds to help you support those efforts to reach small businesses. So there's lots of avenues here in which help is coming to companies. In the December bill, we allowed local chambers to be eligible to file for PPP. They're C6s, they're eligible to file. Under this bill, we expanded it to all nonprofits. So now we have other nonprofits that are eligible. Gives you one example on what we did on size for nonprofits. The YMCA of Greater Maryland did not qualify under the original PPP loan because when you looked at all their number of employees, it was over 500. But if you look at it on a per location basis, it was well under 500. They can now qualify for these funds. So you really need, we've tried to address the needs of all the companies, and we have special programs for those that have suffered the most because of government ordered shutdowns.
And it's truly extraordinary, the breadth of the bill and the coverage that you're providing to so many communities. You've actually answered 2 or 3 of the questions that have popped up here. But there is one about micro grants. And I know it's a complex bill. The question is, are there any micro grants included in the bill?
You know, the microloans have worked so well. We're having a hearing this Wednesday with the SBA, and also, by the way, with the Inspector General and the Government Accounting Office. And the microloan program did receive some additional support in December. So there is some additional funds in the microloan program. We've increased the dollar amounts a little bit. But when you take a look at the reach of these programs, the 7A and 504, which are the prime programs under the SBA, these are not COVID-related programs. These are their main programs. The participation on minority communities and among women is not what it needs to be. And that's one of my top priorities, is to get these programs much more accessible. But when you look at the microloan program, it's much more successful because these are lower dollar amount loans without all the paperwork required on some of the 7A and 504 loans, which are much more suited for the smaller small businesses, which are a higher percentage owned by minorities and women. So the microloan program is critically important. And yes, we have increased that, and we intend to even go further on the microloan program. The Community Advantage Program, 7A Community Advantage Program, which is only pilot right now, we want to make that permanent. These are smaller 7A loans that go into underserved communities. And quite frankly, President Biden has ordered us to do this. And Administrator Guzman, who's the administrator of the SBA, is dedicated to making sure these programs work better in minority communities and women. So one last comment, if I might say, since I took on the leadership of the Small Business Committee, we've opened up 2 more women business centers in our state. We had one located in Rockville. We have now one on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, one in Baltimore. We're going to do everything we can to outreach, to reach those communities that have not been given the same degree of attention that they should have been given in regards to the small business programs.
Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you. I'll give one more question in respect to your time, if that's all right.
Sure.
I'm not sure if this is in the bill or not, but will businesses have the same protections toward commercial rent relief as residential rent relief? I'm not sure there's anything in the bill on that.
Well, commercial rent relief, if you're a business owner, you can use the PPP money for rent.
Right.
So the original bill that was passed in March had a small amount that could go for rent. We changed that midstream, so you can use a larger percentage of your money for non-personnel payroll purposes, including rent. And on the second round of PPP, we allowed the more generous allocations to apply. So a commercial business that qualifies for PPP can use those funds for rents. In addition, those businesses that qualify for the special programs we have for shuttered venues or for restaurants can use those monies for rents. And lastly, the use of the COVID-related money, stabilization money for local governments can be tailored any way the local governments want to use those funds to help their commercial sector. So that could be also used for rent. So there's a lot of different programs here that could be used for dealing with rents, but it's not part of the renter relief program that was passed to help homeowners that are residential renters. That's for residential properties, as is the homeowners program is for principal residents.
Senator, I have to say how impressed I am with the breadth of your knowledge on what I know is a massive piece of legislation. when I heard you characterize it, it was really one of the most important pieces of legislation you've touched. I think I'm going to respect your time here and say thank you for what you've done. Any closing remarks you want to make, and we'll let you go on to, I know, the other important part of your day.
Well, David, thank you for that compliment. I was trained by the best, such as Dave Iannucci and Bill Ratchford and the group in the Maryland General Assembly. I think there is certain advantages of coming out of the state legislature. When you go to the Congress, you really do know the local issues. But I am also very fortunate to have the type of support, such as the Prince George's County Chamber. You all have been extremely helpful, and I appreciate the openness in which you operate. And it makes it easy for me. We have many examples of businesses in Maryland that I've used in order to try to tailor these programs to meet the needs. And nothing is so gratifying when I go in and shop, and I support small businesses as much as I possibly can, and talk to the store owners and listen to their concerns. And when I see the tools that we've developed really keeping them alive, we've lost too many businesses, make no mistake about it, but we saved a lot of businesses. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Our economy is going to rebound, and small businesses are the growth engine of America. And that's where innovation takes place. And we've never seen more creativity than we have during COVID-19. And we're going to need that coming out of COVID-19. So it's a real honor to represent Prince George's County. And thank you for caring, and thank you for the way that you approach these issues.
Let's all thank Senator Cardin for his time this morning, his commitment to Maryland and to the residents of Prince George's County. Thank you, Senator.
Stay safe, everybody. Thanks.
I'll now transition to our next presenters. It's really my pleasure to introduce to you a really great friend of mine personally, a friend of Prince George's County, a great leader of the Prince George's County Chamber of Commerce. David Harrington, thank you for your role here. And I'll turn it over to you to go to the next panel and the rest of our program. Thank you.
David, thank you very much for your leadership and partnership in bringing such a distinguished and informative event to us. And so I really want to appreciate you and your leadership. And I didn't know that you had some mentorship with some of the top leaders in the state. So that every time we do one of these things, I learned something more about you. And so thank you very much. Before I also begin some of my remarks and introductions, I want to reiterate to those who asked about that perhaps the area where they're doing banking now has not been open to providing you with a connection to the PPP loan. I know David Iannucci with EDC and the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. We do have some local banks that are more than willing to accept your applications for PPP. And so while we're getting some good news that this might be extended, I would say that let's operate in the March 31 deadline. And if you need some connection to some of these banks, please contact the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce through my email at dharrington@pgcoc.org. And we'll be happy to connect you with some of these local banks who have received funding from the federal government and who receive funding from the federal government and, like I said, are more than willing to provide you with some support. And look out, I'm going to be working with the team at the Chamber to see if we can get some of these banks on the Zoom call to help you through what it takes to get some of this PPP money. It's great money. The Chamber was awarded some money, and I can tell you it's at 1% interest. Let me repeat that, 1% interest. And if you spend it down, it reverts to a grant. So this is amazing money, and I want to thank Senator Cardin for his leadership in getting this done. And so I understand that at least one of our speakers is in the room, Mr. Velasquez, and also if Dr. Dukes is in the room as well. we'll get to our next panel, which is the Prince George's County Forward Task Force. And we want to thank the county executive, Angela Alsobrooks, for providing tremendous leadership in bringing together what I've seen, and in my many years of being in Prince George's County, some of the most talented people to begin to craft a path forward for getting over COVID. As David Iannucci said, COVID has hit us hard, and we needed a plan to sort of move forward that was immediate, but also forward thinking. And I want to thank the leadership of Dr. Charlene Dukes and David Velasquez for providing the key leadership in this. I was happy to serve on the task force as well. But their leadership really put us in a fantastic position. So let me introduce the speakers, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Dukes and David Velasquez. Dr. Dukes, of course, is...
Mr. Harrington?
Yes.
Why don't we go ahead and go to the business success stories, and we'll close out with the task.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm sorry, you all. I'm jumping into. I just saw that Dr. Dukes joined. So why don't we go now with the task force? Sorry about this. We're in this virtual environment, and people aren't here in real time. So please bear with us. I just saw that Dr. Dukes joined, so we can actually get started with the task force, and then we can go back to the success stories. Again, apologies for all the mix-up. Thanks, David, for leading us in this.
No problem whatsoever. No problem. If anybody knows me, I'm a person who's nimble and flexible. So, and Brandon, you should know that given all the hours that we spent on the Economic Development Committee on the task force. So appreciate that. And I'm delighted to have both Dr. Dukes and David Velasquez with us. So again, Dr. Dukes is President Emeritus of the Prince George's Community College. She was appointed as president in 2007, and really has, the college has benefited from her leadership, where she's brought an Academy of Health Sciences. She's also brought technology for early college academies, and also the Culinary Institute is one of the highest in Maryland. Her leadership is outstanding, not only in Prince George's County, but in the state. And her current board service includes, she's the chair of the Meyer Foundation, vice chair of Care First, secretary of the Greater Washington Community Foundation, member of Venture Philanthropy Partners, plus Raise DC, and immediate past chair of the President's Roundtable of Black CEOs in Community Colleges. So welcome, Dr. Dukes. It's really, really fantastic to have you here. And David Velasquez, who's president and CEO of Pepco Holdings, also is the co-chair of the Prince George's Forward Task Force. Mr. Velasquez previously served as executive vice president and leader of the power delivery business for Pepco Holdings, and serves on boards of several education and community organizations, such as the DC Policy Center of the Federal City Council, Emeritus Advisory Board of the American Association of Blacks in Energy, and United Way of the United Capital, National Capital Area. He is also a board member of the Association of Edison Illuminating Companies and the Greater Washington Board of Trade. So I welcome both of you to the conversation. And I hope that you can manage yourselves in a way, but please provide us with some information on the Prince George's Forward Task Force. Thank you. So either one of you can go first, or if you had some other slides or what have you.
So if I understand that unmuting is fundamental in this process. So thank you very much. And Dave and I are both delighted to be here with you, and thank you for inviting us. We're here to discuss the important work of the Prince George's Forward Task Force, and in particular, the recommendations of the Economic Recovery Committee that was led by Tom Graham. The task force, as you all know, was convened by County Executive Also Brooks, and we're navigating some really complex and challenging environments to reimagine and to rebuild our county stronger than it has ever been before. So we know that Prince George's County has been hit particularly hard by COVID-19, not just from a health perspective, but from business recovery, employment, education, and the like. And we have to work to ignite a quick recovery for residents and for our businesses. So it's an honor to be part of something that's so aspirational and at the same time so very doable. The task force is comprised of experts and county employees, all of whom are volunteering our time to produce recommendations for the county executive to help guide these efforts. She challenged us to be innovative, data-driven, and solutions-oriented, and translate to being bold, audacious, and forward-thinking in the work that we put before her. So, and all of the members of the task force, including the chairs of the subcommittee, are leaders in their field, and they've done just that. So as we walk through the presentation today, you'll hear it, and then we'll certainly be available to answer any questions that you have. So I know we want to go to the next slide, and I'd like to introduce Mr. David Velasquez. We are co-chairs and comrades in arms around all of this.
Dr. Dukes, thank you. It has been a fantastic, almost a year now working on this task force, and very, very exciting to be able to work collaboratively with so many, I'll say, experts and community leaders from Prince George's County to try to reimagine kind of Prince George's County going forward as well. The county executive, when she formed the task force, as Dr. Dukes had said, expected us to come up with recommendations that were very actionable, that were very high quality, and also expected us to make those recommendations in real time. So this wasn't a task force that was going to go off and work quietly and then issue a formal report many, many months later. So instead, we were asked to produce actionable recommendations in 3 phases. And these recommendations, which need to reflect the county executive's vision that the task force was there to help guide the county's recovery from this pandemic, not just in the months ahead, but also in the years ahead, with the goal of producing a stronger and better Prince George's County.
So as we move to the next slide, we were asked to focus on 5 key recovery areas, and each one of those is led by a subcommittee chair, and their work groups are comprised of experts and advocates, those who are challenging our thought process and being very insightful in their responses to that. The backgrounds vary, and the expertise enabled us to address challenges from all angles. We knew and understood the county, and we're committed to its success. So the Health Recovery Subcommittee is chaired by Dr. Joe Wright, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at the University of Maryland Capital Region Health. And many of you not only probably know Dr. Wright, but you've seen him in a variety of mediums over the course of the last several months, as he has been both the voice and the face of, along with Dr. Carter from the Health Department, of the COVID recovery efforts here in Prince George's County. The Education Recovery Subcommittee is chaired by Dr. Darrell Pines, who became the president of the University of Maryland College Park on July 1 of 2020. And we reached out to him in late May, early June, to ask him to join us, given the significance of post-secondary education in Prince George's County. So he readily accepted the opportunity to chair the subcommittee and join with other both K-12 public and non-public institutions and our higher education institutions here in the county. The Government Operations Subcommittee is chaired by the Honorable Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, who, as you all know, with state stats introduced a system across the state where we could really determine and use metrics to chart our success. And he's been very helpful in ensuring that that occurs within the context of this task force. And the Human and Social Services Recovery Subcommittee is chaired by Rosie Allen Herring, the president and CEO of the United Way of the National Capital Area, an organization that is deeply committed to looking at the human experience and ensuring that there are services that are necessary to support and undergird our more than 900,000 residents here in Prince George's County. And finally, the subcommittee that we're here to discuss in depth, the Economic Recovery Committee, is chaired by Tom Graham of T.H. Graham and Associates. Tom is just a pillar of strength around this work and has been very instrumental in leading that subcommittee to recommendations that we believe will support not just business recovery, but the business community. Next slide, please. So all of the subcommittees are comprised of Prince Georgians and Marylanders who are diverse in background and professional experience. And again, we are united by our commitment to ensure a thriving future for Prince George's County. And the Economic Recovery Subcommittee is just one excellent example. They're experts in the field of transportation, banking, business development, real estate, financing, commerce, small business incubation, entertainment, and county government, all volunteering their time to make sure that we're on the right track to recovery. So the committee reflects a group united in their mission to ignite a full recovery and to help position our county for greater growth in the years to come. And many of you are aware for the last 3 years, at least the last 3 years prior to the devastation that COVID-19 has just created across our community, across our region and the country, that Prince George's County was actually leading the state in job growth and creation. And we want to get back to that point. Next slide, please. So given the urgency that the pandemic has created, we've been working in real time to release recommendations in 3 phases: immediate, short-term, and long-term. Immediate recommendations that we called actions today were things that could have been completed by the end of the calendar year of 2020. And we are well on our way to have done that. And we have a few more that will be completed by the time we end the fiscal year on June 30th of 2021. So the recommendations were made, they were approved and put into implementation. So for actions today, those quick wins, there were a total number of 47 recommendations proposed. 38 were accepted and approved by the county executive, and they are currently being implemented. The total projected cost of those 38 quick wins or actions today represent about $8.9 million. Visions for tomorrow, which are our short-term recommendations, we proposed through all 5 subcommittees, 34 recommendations. 28 of those recommendations were accepted and approved by County Executive Also Brooks, and the total projected cost for implementation is $22 million. Those recommendations are to be, the implementation of those recommendations are to be completed between June 30th and December 31st of this year. And then just on Wednesday, March 17th, we presented the last set of recommendations, the longer term ones, a redefined future. We proposed 29 recommendations, and we expect that within the next week to 10 days, the county executive will respond to us with those that she has approved. And we believe that those recommendations will have an implementation period of anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So next slide, please. So with the overview of the task force in mind, we want to spend some time getting to what you ask us to do today. And that is talking in greater detail about some of the recommendations made by the Economic Recovery Work Group, and then open it up for your questions and the discussion. And I would be remiss if I did not say that David Harrington has been a key figure in the Economic Recovery Work Group, working alongside Tom Graham in the development of the recommendations and all of the thought processes that went behind them. So at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to my fellow co-chair, Dave Velasquez, and he will go through some of the recommendations. And we'll cue the next slide, and thank you.
Dr. Dukes, thanks. And as I go through some of the recommendations that were made by the Economic Recovery Task Force, you know, in the time we have, it's impossible to go through all of them. It's also impossible to convey to you kind of the robust discussions and the deep discussions that subcommittee had on a host of different issues. And in order to help organize their work, they organized their task force into different, what they called specific focus areas that you can see listed on the slide here, around job recovery, workforce development, business recovery, tourism recovery, economic relief, real estate recovery, policies, tools, and resources, and mass transit guidance. And that allowed them to have different people focused on different areas to really drive the recommendations going forward. But I did want to highlight for you some of, I think, what we think are the key recommendations. So if you flip to the next slide, I wanted to start, as Dr. Dukes had said, there are a number of what we called actions today, or quick wins. These are things that could be done and were done and implemented and began to be implemented immediately. So I think you're aware that the county has rolled out several different recovery initiatives since the start of the pandemic. There's the Business Recovery Initiative, which is listed here, which provided $20 million in grants to support Prince George's County businesses that have been impacted by COVID. There's the Restaurant Resilience Fund, which provided $3.3 million in grants to county-based restaurant and food establishments. And each grantee was eligible up to $25,000 under that program. There was the Child Care Provider Recovery Program, which provided $2 million in grant dollars to licensed child care centers, to registered family care centers. And the grants there were $20,000 up to $20,000 to licensed and $3,000 to registered family centers. And then also at the end there, the training and technical support for county-based businesses. I think you could actually look at this webinar as a direct result of the recommendation that the task force had made as well. If we flip to the next slide, what we call visions for tomorrow, or rather short-term recommendations. One of them was that the task force thought it was very important to get, I'll say, actionable information, both from past and present customers of the county, to gauge their experience in navigating the permitting and inspection process, which, as you know, is critical to new development coming into the county. So implementing a customer satisfaction survey for the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement, or DPI, is going to provide the administration with the requisite insight, the analysis, and the guidance to improve the regulatory process. And the outcomes can also be used to help establish a baseline for future performance. And the goal is to use the results of the survey to enhance the agency's customer-facing tools and how the county provides services to its customers as well. On the next slide, and now we're moving into what we call Reimagine Future, or as Dr. Dukes had said, these are longer-term recommendations. And part of this was to change, we said, change the narrative of Prince George's County and to create connections. So Prince George's County has long been considered a bedroom community, right? And changing this narrative is going to take intentional work and intentional priority that opens capital and investment to county-based businesses to create jobs and wealth within the county. And you can go back one slide. We'll move forward in a minute. So the primary goal is to design hubs where businesses are able to connect with lending institutions, receive technical assistance on increasing their capital that they have to grow their businesses. And the effort's going to align FSC First, Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation, and other business associations that have access to lending institutions, again, to create those connections and allow and create lasting capital access for small and minority businesses. Now you can go to the next slide. And this is also a longer term recommendation around the opportunity to grow and create new employment opportunities. You know, at the heart of many of the recommendations, a lot of the discussion, whether it's immediate or long term, is a strong desire we heard to improve all phases of the county's development process. So improving the regulatory permitting process, both the time frame and the systematic complexities there, as well as re-examining the fee structure, are all important to improving the overall permitting process. The county needs also increased flexibility to quickly fill any critical vacant positions that exist in permitting and inspections. And again, that's to help prevent any project delays so that projects can move forward in a timely manner. And the goal is, and I think the result of this recommendation will be that it's going to attract new economic development initiatives, which grow both the county's tax base and also create new employment opportunities within the county as well. If you flip to the next slide, as we think about economic development opportunities, some of that is also around the workforce and helping the county develop a county-wide workforce development strategy. And again, this is also a longer-term recommendation that we recognize will take some time to implement. And what we're looking here is to implement a county-wide coordinated workforce development service delivery strategy, workforce development marketing campaign, and an advocacy strategy to help decrease the unemployment in the county. We want to be able to connect Prince George's County small and medium businesses directly to the college and universities located in the county, to recruit and employ graduating seniors from the local colleges and universities. We need a coordinated policy and an advocacy strategy to secure local workforce development from both state and also from federal agencies. And then finally, coordinate agency human resource recruitment efforts to encourage the county to hire county residents and ensure that the county residents are receiving the human service benefits that are connected to workforce development. And again, the goal is to reduce the unemployment. And the phrase that really captured it for me was, and I forget who, I wish I could take credit for it, but said, you know, we focused a lot on buying Prince George's County. And I think we need to expand that phrase to say not just buy Prince George's County, but hire Prince George's County. I think that captures the spirit of this recommendation. If you flip to the next slide, again, another longer term recommendation was to improve the entitlement process. And this has long been an area of concern, as I think you know, for the business community in Prince George's County, because of the length of time it takes to get through the process in comparison to some other jurisdictions in the region as well. So our recommendation is to convene a group of technical experts and community stakeholders appointed by the county executive with input from the county council that's charged with reviewing and recommending improvements to the entitlement process in the county. Part of that recommendation was to remove the call-up process, which is utilized by county council, and that triggers an additional review of proposed development projects that have already received a decision from the planning board or the zoning hearing examiner. We also think we need to improve the transparency in the planning process by expanding community engagement and developing a step-by-step guide for the entitlements process for each of the applicable zones to encourage investment in Prince George's County over any of the surrounding neighboring jurisdictions. And now, again, that's just a brief review of all the work that, and I wish we had time to give you a better sense of every single recommendation that this task force came up with. But this is just an overview of some of the, I think, what are the key ones around the Economic Recovery Task Force. And let me turn it back to Dr. Dukes to talk a little bit about some of the recommendations from the other recovery work groups.
And that should cue up the next slide, please. So, you know, we didn't operate in 5 separate silos. In fact, we worked really hard to create synergy and intersection in the work. So the recommendations actually complemented each other, and they often reached across subcommittee lines to ensure that we were thinking in totality about the entire county across both geographic and demographic profiles. So for example, in education, there are recommendations that focus on keeping young people learning, enhancing our trained workforce to and we know that that's essential to a healthy and vibrant economy. So it wasn't just about young people in K-12, but it was about those who were moving on to post-secondary education and those who were returning to post-secondary education for the possibility to learn a new skill and for upskilling in the current work that they're doing. And healthcare, the healthcare recovery group recognized from the start that the county needed an aggressive vaccine distribution plan. And you know that we are still moving that forward, as many of our churches and places like CVS and Walgreens and these pop-ups are happening in order to ensure that our residents can get vaccinated and do it timely. So those early recommendations kicked off an early distribution planning process, because until we get those shots in our arms, we don't have the mobility that we need to get back to school and get back to work. And many of our members of our community stepped up to be what we call influencers and champions, to understand that in order to combat this pandemic, that we've got to get that vaccination and be as healthy as possible and not pass the virus on from one person to another. And in government operations, you know, we wanted to ensure that there was a viable continuity of government plan in place. So when and if we face another crisis, our workforce will be able to pivot quickly and adjust to keep operations and core services moving. There's been a tremendous amount of work and recommendations with regard to digitization. How are we doing that with records in county government so that they're easily accessible through technology? And at the same time, how are we providing the tools to our students, both again, pre-K through 12, and then in post-secondary education, to make sure that they don't have to have a gap in their learning and can keep moving forward. They are the people that we will depend on when we talk about getting our county back to work. So, so government operations, education, healthcare, there's a thread through there around workforce and around the use of technology to do our work and to stay engaged and complete our learning. And in human and social services, recommendations covered better coordinating social services and identifying ways to support residents before they're in crisis. So less disruption in the lives of our neighbors, our friends, our family members means less disruption for our employees and for the county. And there are so many things that many of us have learned in this period in which we find ourselves, that we understand that the way forward is through innovation and transformation, and not wholeheartedly reverting back to what the ways in which we worked and communicated pre-COVID-19. So if we go to the next slide, please. All of our recommendations can be found in the reports on the website, and the full task force meeting discussions and presentations are also found online as well at www.princegeorgesforward.com. If we go to the next slide, please. And I believe where we are here is the conclusion of the formal presentation. And now, David, we'll turn it back to you for questions and discussion.
Well, Dr. Dukes, thank you. And David Velasquez, thank you so much for a rich presentation where there was certainly a lot of input in setting the path for these recommendations, and look forward to even more discussion on how these recommendations will unfold, and certainly build back our economy in a way, bring it back to being a robust economy. So thanks to both of you for your leadership. I would ask people to begin to now ask questions within the Q&A. And we do have one question here. If someone wanted to get involved in one or more of the subcommittees, what is the process?
Well, what I will say to you is that the task force is actually winding down its work. we presented the last set of recommendations to County Executive also Brooks this past Wednesday, March 17th, so that we expect within the next 30 days or so, we will be working with some of the internal staff to pull together what we call the final report, which will be inclusive of every recommendation and where it is in terms of the implementation strategy and phases from those 47 quick wins to these last 29 recommendations. So what I would suggest is that you think about where you might be able to fit in the implementation phase, or to provide some thoughts around implementation, because actually we have been a task force in operation for at least 10 months, almost 11 months. And we will, our work will actually end with the executive order that was written to establish the task force. And so that means the executive order is May 25th of 2021. We were committed to finishing our work early because we think that these recommendations are critical to the well-being of our county. So we are likely to be finished by April 1.
But I would add for anyone who has comments or suggestions they'd like to make on one of the slides, we showed the email address at pathforward@co.pg.md.us, and are very much welcome, to send your comments there. And it also has the website, as you can see there, princegeorgesforward.com, where all the recommendations and all the information is there, and encourage you to go there as well. But of course, are always open to any comments or questions you have.
Yes, and then someone said, and I think that we now have answered that question. We could put the website back in the chat that both Dr. Dukes and Mr. Velasquez mentioned. So I think this is the way that you can connect with the task force's findings and the other recommendations. That's correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have another question here. It said, the question here, did I miss it, or have you discussed new real estate development and construction projects?
I think we have not talked about any specific project, but I think the task force as it did its work was really focused on not just existing or planned, but also new real estate development and construction projects, and how the county, through whether it's the survey I talked about, improvements to the regulatory process, the task force, or we don't call it the work group we had talked about recommending that gets constituted to look at the whole process. I think all those are things that are really focused on improving the process for new real estate development or new construction projects, make it a simpler process, make it a less expensive process around development fees. So certainly has been a focus.
And here's a question. It might be for David Iannucci, but also the task force. It says, hi, David. Will the county consider extending the outdoor seating permits or making them permanent? Folks are going to be reluctant to sit inside for a long time to come. Allowing us to keep our outdoor seating may be a key to keeping us in business. That's Ken Carter of Maryland Mead Works.
So if I could,
Yeah.
David, what I would say, making sure that we get that information so we can move it along and share it with the appropriate decision makers within county government will be so critical, because I think we can all agree that even as we move forward in the vaccination process, we also want to continue to be safe in ways that support our residents and in ways that continue to support our businesses in terms of these recovery efforts.
Excellent.
I'll add, David,
Sure.
I think these are very good ideas. I think they are under active consideration. I know some of our neighboring counties have made a move to essentially make permanent some of the temporary easing of regulations to allow more outdoor dining. I heard from one very big restaurant we all know in Prince George's County, this made that specific request. Franklin's down in Hyattsville, who really invested very seriously in an outdoor dining area. And so it's a very good idea, and I think it's going to be actively considered.
Thank you very much. I want to go back. There is a question, and I want to go back to a question about real estate development. And I want to add some comments to that.
Please.
That within our economic development subcommittee, we talked about what are ways in which we can have a consistent process in terms of real estate development and construction process. And so you heard David Velasquez speak to what are the ways in which we can have much more certainty within this process in a way than that these real estate development construction projects can be evaluated. And so the committee has made some recommendations about creating more certainty and better review of these projects, so that then they can be moved forward in a way that's consistent. And so I want to speak to that, as well as I'm chair of the Redevelopment Authority as well, and so we're looking at this group with economic development on how then we can use resiliency and connect our economic ecosystem in a way where then we can do some major redevelopment in the county. And we're seeing that in Suitland, certainly, and then in other parts of the county. So I wanted to add some comments to that question as well. There's another question about what is the committee's thought on HB 980, the Prince George's Ethics Bill. I think it is anti-ethics for the county council. I don't know if David or Dr. Deuce, you can answer that. I could certainly give some thoughts to that, but I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
So we'll listen to your thoughts.
What is that now is the CMA, which is the new zoning regulations that the county, we hope that the county council would pass. They add in some new consistent regulations in zoning and reduce the particular zones in a way where then they can be conformed to add in development, particularly in mixed-use development around metro stations, and also environmentally sound development throughout the county. What this person is referring to is that with the CMA, the county council, because of the ethics bill, have to recuse themselves if they've received contributions from developers, which then, if they cannot vote on the zoning bill, then the zoning bill then would lapse, and then we would go back to our old zoning, which is complex, outdated, and has over 1,000 zones in it. However, there's some, imagine Ms. Bowles, there's some who thinks that if in fact the House, which I believe is voting on it today, HB 980, if they pass this bill, then it would allow for county council people then it would allow them to accept developer money, which some people have a concern about. Well, I would say to Ms. Bowles and others, and I know Ms. Bowles, she was a former constituent of mine, and so hello, Ms. Bowles. If you look at what the task force has set out, and I think it's in our long range, and I was very much a part of that, what we have suggested is that call up and even the district council be removed from the county council. So in fact, then that they would no longer decide then development applications or even have any input on those applications, but instead only would be put in legislation that would be relative to zoning law, but not have any authority over deciding applications. And I think that, and I would say that I was one who pushed this, because I think that it gets the county council out of exactly what Ms. Bowles was referring to, and that is then remove them from any sort of ethical entanglement that may then help them decide projects. And so it's going to be a heavy lift, quite frankly, but I think that as we begin to reimagine Prince George's County, getting the county council out of actually deciding on projects, I think would be a good thing and would align them with how other county councils perform their duties throughout the state. So I hope I answered that question, but and I know that was a technical answer, but I think that it deserves some attention, and we'll see what happens. So Ms. Bowles, let me know if I answered your question. And if not, then we can have a private conversation on it. Okay, I think that's all for questions. And so I wanted to thank Dr. Dukes and David Velasquez for their incredible leadership in this effort. As Dr. Dukes mentioned, this was a very engaging effort, and a lot of work was put into this. But I think that the recommendations that have emerged and from the talent that has emerged, we will see a different Prince George's County in a way where it will make us incredibly competitive within the region. I'm looking, let me see. Okay, so thank you, very informative. So indeed, so let's give if we can, a virtual hand clap to our presenters, Dr. Charlene Dukes and David Velasquez. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for your commitment, and thanks to all of you for being part of the team that has to reimagine and transform Prince George's County as we continue to move forward. It was our pleasure to serve and our pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And now we'll go to our success stories. And first, Mr. Otterbein, you're up first. And these are businesses that are really changing showing that Prince George's County is open for business. And so we want to bring up Mr. Otterbein for Wikini Produce and Produce and Gourmet. And so, Mr. Otterbein, you're up, and thank you for being a business in Prince George's County.
Great. Well, David, thank you, and Tom, we thank you for the opportunity to to just share a little success, with the group. We were, we are, for those who know Wikini Produce, you see our trucks on the road with the green cabs, and we service, our primary business is serving the restaurant industry, the eat away from home industry. And as you know, and we've heard so many relief packages trying to help, but we experienced it all exactly a year ago today, is when our revenues fell off 80% as the DMV closed down, reacted to all the troublings of the pandemic just starting. So it's hard to believe we're rounding a full year just this week for us. I think we were the early starters. We saw it happen first as the tourism came and collapsed, restaurants closed, restrictions happened. And it's tough for most people to remember, for the first 60, 90 days, you couldn't even leave your house. I think we forget about that. But we were lucky enough to with the help of Jared and Senator Cardin's office, and all the state, the federal, the county help, and the federal help, it really catapulted us back to figure out a new way to do things, and to look for other streams of revenue sources to support at the end of the day, really to support our employees. 80% of our employees live in PG County. we're based in the Hyattsville area, and have been based there for 40 years. So we pivoted very quickly into we weren't a retail company. We were really a food service company. We pivoted to retail, and we looked towards making curbside boxes, and we had stations all around the DMV. I think we had as much as 14 different locations, created a website, tried to be high tech, and had people order fruits and vegetable boxes from us, because at the first part of the pandemic, people, were very limited to go into grocery stores. So it was a great pivot for us. It kept our employees working. It gave the extra hour, the extra day to every one of our employees, so we could support them and their families, through it. And then the next big program that came up, and again, Senator Cardin was part of this. It was a federal program, the Families and Farmers Food Box program was another, we pivoted from the curbside to we knew how to make curbside boxes, and we started to be able to have the opportunity to make them for the federal government. And at one point we were shipping them out of our Landover facility, to 6 or 7 different states. So that program continues to evolve, and it's been a great source of revenue to fill in the gaps until what we hope, and we can see the signs now that the restaurant industry continues to recover. We've only seen baby steps, as restrictions, continue to ease up. Every time there's a little easier restriction, we see a little more business the following week. So we're very optimistic for the future. We are we are so thankful for the support that we've got, that can hold a company like ours together and hold it together for our employees for a better time. And we see that better time coming. We've seen the best weeks now since back in the fall, and it gives us great optimism that as we grow towards the summer and as we get back to fall, we'll certainly see more restaurants open, the college and universities hopefully coming back in the fall, tourism returning to the DMV. So again, we see bright spots in front of us, but certainly was a challenge to get there, because one of our industries was one of the ones, just hurt the most. So again, we appreciate everybody's support, and we look forward to, continuing that growth and continuing that path, to the recovery. So thank you.
Well, we want to thank you as well for your leadership in Prince George's County, and your work, and how you've been resilient in bringing services to needed businesses. So thank you for your work. We appreciate you. Next is Mr. Adam Greenberg, who is the president and founder of College Park Grill, Potomac Pizza, Bagel and Grinds. And those are all, I have to say, those are all great restaurants. And so if you get a chance, go by there and pick up some great food. And Mr. Greenberg, appreciate your leadership and the restaurants, and bringing the restaurant perspective to this conversation. So, Mr. Greenberg. I'm sorry. Is the sound on?
Hi, my name is Adam Greenberg, and I am the president of Restaurant Zone. We own and operate 8 different restaurants over 4 different counties in the state of Maryland. The pandemic of 2020 and 2021 has been the most challenging of my 29-year career. Out of all our restaurants, our 3 restaurants in College Park have been hit the hardest. We say most of the time they've been on life support. We've been in a college town, basically without a college. We've been in hotels which have been shut down or very low occupancy with no meetings, no events, and we've had to work tirelessly throughout this pandemic, like most restaurants across the country, to survive, to keep our teams employed, and keep everyone motivated and keep everything going. We did receive a PPP funding back in April of 2020, but we were told that money needed to be spent in 8 weeks on our teams. So we started rapidly spending that money. The rules got changed. Half the money was already gone. So we had very little money left to keep things going. Thank God Prince George's County stepped up to the plate. They offered us additional grants to keep our teams employed for the next, what we thought was only going to be for a few months. We stretched things as long as we could. We thought outside of the box as best as we could to create revenue streams. And that luckily gave us the funding to get through to this past month in February of 21, where we received additional PPP funding. I have to say, Prince George's County, out of all my jurisdictions I'm in, has stepped up like none other. They've provided us the funding that we essentially needed to get to this point today. But not only did they provide the funding, the teams in Prince George's County and FSC First worked tirelessly. And I know not just on my grants, but all the grants. I would get emails at 12 in the morning, 1 in the morning, requesting information, helping me get over the line so they could provide us the funding to keep our teams employed, to keep our businesses open. We like to say we need to survive today so we can thrive again tomorrow. So I really want to send a heartfelt thank you to everybody who helped us, who helped keep our teams employed, keep our restaurants open, so once again, we can thrive again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that that was a video, but just want to send a deep thanks to being a part of this and sharing your story on how the county is helping you, and to David Iannucci and your team. That just demonstrates how you are helping business in Prince George's County. So appreciate the work that you all are doing to keep businesses afloat and bringing out jobs back. So next is Kiani Perrin, who is CEO of More and Merch, and they do a terrific job with helping you with advertising and public relations, and I know we've used them many times with the chamber, and they've produced outstanding work. So Kiani, you're on, and please share your story.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. In spite of, why we're here and talking about the ramifications of the COVID-19 virus and how it's affected so many, I just want to thank Tom, Denise, Shaka, David Harrington for always just being incredible partners to me and my endeavors. And as the co-founder of More and More Merch, we have definitely seen some changes. We started off, I would say about a year ago, just like everyone else has mentioned, with I have a chalkboard wall here that you can't see, but this chalkboard wall was full of galas and events that we were providing merchandise for. So that may be t-shirts or book bags, whatever the case may be. The wall was full on March 11th. And, we really didn't know what the pandemic was going to look like, or even that it was a pandemic at that time. And so, the news, we started hearing the news and about things that were getting canceled and events that were being canceled. And one day the chalkboard was full. And when I tell you, the very next day, literally there was radio silence. So we really did not know what to expect. And we really did not have a contingency plan for, hey, if events stop happening, what is merchandise going to look like? So we really didn't know. And so what happened next was that, of course, there was a scramble for PPE. We really did not get too involved with providing PPE for businesses just because it was a really high stakes game and it wasn't something that we were able to get into. However, There was a slow rebound. Eventually, some of our clients and customers started needing boxes, branded boxes to send to their employees so that they could keep in touch and stay top of mind. There were some events that were virtual that came back, and we provided mugs for different events and things like that. And that was slow, and it was incredible. And we were glad to have some business, even though it was nowhere near the full scale of what we had been doing. But then something happened, and it really provided like our pivot number one, and that was the social revolution. So in the midst of everything happening, we all remember the unfortunate killing of George Floyd, and just the outcry of local support, women-owned support, Black-owned support. And we received so much support during that time period that it was really a breath of fresh air, even though it was, because of something so horrific happening. But it really put the spotlight on local businesses, small businesses, Black-owned businesses. And even though, we're in an area where you would think, we're always utilized for imprint is out there and Amazon, but we had so many small businesses who were just starting brand new businesses, or who were displaced by the workforce and starting something new, or creating a course for moms who are homeschooling now, and they needed branded materials. They needed kits to be able to send out, and the support was literally overwhelming. So that was pivot number one. But that also put us in a place where we had to design more, and we had to kind of babysit the process instead of, our seasoned corporate clients who, know how to place an order for t-shirts or know how to design what they're having us create. We had to really get in there, get our hands dirty, help them to create from start to finish a product and a service. So that was pivot number one, was just getting more into the design and being able to really be hands-on with a smaller set of clients, a smaller type of client, but really giving them the same level of service and the same care that we would for a large corporate client. So that was pivot number one. Pivot number two was that we noticed, we even actually got a call from Miss Gloria James, who some of you may or may not know, but that is the most famous basketball mom in the world. She saw some of our design work and hired us to create her brand and all of her visuals for Miss Gloria James. So that was one thing that came out of all of this that was really incredible, really exciting for us to work on. And I would say pivot number three was being able to help our clients and our customers, even in the midst of such a tragic moment and so much loss. So there was a group of millennial moms, and they created a box of 500 boxes that were filled with school supplies for students who would have to go back to school this past fall and wouldn't have the supplies that they needed, or just wouldn't be equipped for going to school virtually or being at home and things like that. So this box was full of even cosmetics that a child may need, deodorant, school supplies. It was incredible. And while they did not want us to discount our products, we snuck in a sponsorship, because pre-COVID, that's something that we really hung our hat on, was being able to sometimes sponsor events for our clients, especially when there was a cause that we really felt strongly about, or really felt strongly about. And that's something that we were always able to do. They didn't want us to discount anything because they knew that, our business had been hit hard, but we were still able to sneak that in there and help them. We provided the boxes for this fundraiser, and it was really incredible. So that was pivot number three, was just really being able to put our ear to the ground and bless our clients when the opportunity availed itself and when the opportunity existed. So the three things I say that we learned from this was that to stay connected to our community, because ultimately that has been how we've sustained ourselves. Like we said, we went from huge corporate accounts and galas and to a lot smaller businesses, and it's opened up so much, and it's created a whole different set of opportunities for us. Number two, I would say, is to stay up to date, to learn things, to make sure that you are staying on top of things like this American Rescue Plan, so that you'll be ready to jump on things when there's something that can really help your business. And number three, I would say, is just vendor relations. So in the midst of everything, there has been so many shortages, so many mail issues with the mail not being delivered on time, corrugated box shortages, t-shirt shortages, because so many people are starting businesses and some of these things that we took for granted are no longer as readily available. But those relationships that we maintained with our vendors, even just when the pandemic first began, letting them know or working out something with them to pay our bills and to make sure that we were still able to maintain a quality service and still work with our vendors the way that we needed to. So those are my takeaways. And again, just turning lemons into lemonade, and thankful to be here. If you need any branded materials, by all means, we are definitely your go-to and we would love to serve you.
Well, Kiani, thank you so much wow, that was an amazing story. And what it sounds like what I'm taking away is your resilience in keeping up with your customers, your ability to be nimble and change with the environment in a way that still keeps you viable and strong, and then your willingness to serve in a way that you provide value in a way for other companies so that they too can survive. So that was a fantastic story, and certainly again, you see we have your email there, so anybody who wants to use your service in terms of looking at materials that certainly then can help their brand, we certainly hope that people reach out to you. So thank you, Kiani. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So this has been an amazing meeting, and we want to thank all of you for participating. I also want to thank David Iannucci, dear friend and colleague, and we connect very well with advancing economic development in the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. David, thank you so much for your leadership and your collaboration. I also want to thank on his team, Lori Valentine. She has worked extremely hard on this, and I want to thank her as well for putting this together, working with the team here to make sure that we have an event that is rich with information. And I hope you would agree that this event was really one of a kind in terms of receiving information. So David, thank you, and thank you, Laurie, for your participation. I also want to thank the team at the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce, Shaka Reed, who's done an amazing job in helping to put this together, and also Denise Staples. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank the economic development team at the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. Tom Farrisee, you are a leader extraordinaire, and one who has elevated this conversation in a way that we thought that could never happen. And so, Tom Farrisee, thank you so much for your leadership in this. And I also want to thank Adina Bradley of Southern Management, who also is a key supporter in making sure that this happened. And so I just want to extend out then great leadership of Tom Farrisee and Adina Bradley of the Economic Development Committee at the Chamber of Commerce. And I see in the chat that we also want to acknowledge and thank Jordan Tillman for her creativity and technical support. Thank you, Jordan. We couldn't do it without you. Those tech people behind the scenes make it happen. And so we want to appreciate it, and especially these days when we need technology in such a way to make things happen. So thank you very much. And I just want to thank everybody, anybody who had a hand in this, really thank you. I would just close out with this. Sometimes in a crisis, we find the best. We rise to the top. And you as business people always rise to the top. It's been tough. There's no question about it. We've lost some businesses, and we hope that they can recover. And I know that many of you have lost perhaps maybe 60 to 70% of your revenue because of this COVID. But what you've also done through this crisis, which I pray will end soon, is that you've reinvented yourselves. You reinvented yourselves in a way that you found out that those things that you were hesitant and wasn't sure about going out into the deep, if you will, and doing something different. You did it. You did it. And so while COVID is unimaginable, and certainly we hope that we move forward very quickly, the resilience and the stick-to-itiveness of businesses, particularly in Prince George's County, to not only make sure that your businesses are open, but you serve the public in a way of those who were in need. You stepped up to the plate and provided food, you provided resources, you provided people power in a way that we came together like no one else in the region. And so I want to thank you for your participation. Please look out for more information from the economic development team over at EDC and David Iannucci, and also from the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. We want to try to connect you with the banks so that then you can get those PPP opportunities and not be intimidated about applying for those. So again, I want to thank you all for being part of this. This was a great event, and hopefully we will put on other events like this so that then you will be informed on how your business can thrive and grow in Prince George's County. And this is a great county, and we can make it even better if we stick together and help all of our fellow Prince Georges survive this. But I want to thank you for your willingness to be part of this conversation. So I'll turn it over to the team, and I believe that this will conclude the event. And you all have a great weekend. And please keep in contact with us. And for all the panelists, stand by for a debrief. But thank you very much. Have a great day. And we look forward to making Prince George's County the best county in the region. Take care and have a great day.